Hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors Precision Fuel and Hydration.com. You can personalize your fueling and hydration strategy so you perform at your best with 15% off your first order of electrolytes and carbohydrate fuel with the code OXYGEN24 at precisionfuelandhydration.com. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Coach Rob Wilby, and every week I bring you an episode of this podcast to help motivate and inspire you. Before we get started, there's a couple of things you can do for us, please. Number one, if you like and enjoy this episode, please consider following us on Spotify or on the podcast player of your choice. Helps the growth of the show more than you can possibly imagine. And secondly, if you're looking for help and advice with your triathlon training, we've got a special offer running through to the end of September 2024. We've got £200 off the cost of an annual coaching package with Team Oxygen Addict. I think we've got the most comprehensive triathlon coaching program for busy age groupers, and it's a £200 off offer running all the way to the end of September 2024, taking the price from £1,797 down to £1,597. And remember, you get to lock in that price for as long as you're a continuous member of Team Oxygen Addict, so the price won't go up on you in the future. So if you're looking for that £200 discount, you can find the details in the show notes. Please go through and book a call with me or one of our team, and we'll have a chat with you and find out whether you'd be a good fit for coaching with Team Oxygen Addict. You can grab one of those £200 special offers, and hopefully that's a nice, very tasty saving to help you out as you go into 2025. That's actually us rolling the price back 2 years. So cost of living crisis and all of that, hopefully it'll help you guys out. Okay, on this episode of the podcast, we're going to be going through questions that we've had from athletes, questions we've had over Facebook, things that have come up in our private athlete group, loads of questions people have ahead of an Ironman. And a lot of these are specific to IRONMAN Wales. IRONMAN Wales, as I record, is at the end of this week. So it's natural. There's loads of questions come up for people. Some of these questions will be just specific to IRONMAN Wales because there's you'll hear there's some specific idiosyncrasies of that course, but almost all of this is applicable to any Ironman, no matter what you do. So if you're racing Ironman Wales, first up, best of luck to you. We'll go through these questions athletes have, and hopefully it's going to help set your mind at rest and help you just order some of the thought patterns. Again, none of this is really complicated, but a lot of it won't make sense if you've not been through it before. So first up, the question that is specific to Ironman Wales is, I have to wear an old pair of running shoes to run to T1 from the beach. What's going on with that? Why do I need a separate pair of shoes? So for people who've never been or seen Ironman Wales, it's an incredible venue. The swim happens in the sea and the transition is about 1 kilometre away, but the cliffs overlook the swim venue. So it's an amazing venue for spectators to be there. And if you've never been and you go in this year, it's going to be amazing. But you're going to have to run up a series of zigzag paths up these cliffs. It's probably, 50 meters or so higher than the actual sea itself. And then it's about 1 kilometer run through the town of Tenby to get to transition 1. So you're given a separate bag. You're told to put a separate pair of shoes in there so that you can run to T1. So yes, it is necessary to have an old pair of shoes. And we would really strongly advise that it's a different pair of shoes to the ones that you want to run the marathon in. So stick an old pair of trainers in there. You're only going to be wearing them for 4 or 5 minutes. So again, some people have recommended sticking a bottle of water in there to rinse the sand off your feet and a little cloth to dry your feet off. I personally don't think you need to go as far as that. You're only going to be running for sort of 1 kilometer. But if that's the kind of thing that bothers you, probably not the worst idea in the world to have that in there as well. The choice of whether to run from the sea with the wetsuit rolled down around your waist or whether to take the wetsuit off and carry it, again, is personal preference. I would advise running with the wetsuit rolled down around your waist, then you don't have to worry about carrying it with you. Some people prefer to take it off and carry it. Again, personal preference. I'd always go with leaving it on down around the waist. The argument for carrying it is it's easier to get off when you get out of the water because it might dry out a little bit before you actually get to T1. Personally, I don't think it's going to dry out that much in the 4 or 5 minutes of running that you're going to have, but it is personal preference. So definitely have that old pair of shoes with you. That way You know that the run shoes that you're going to be wearing for the marathon are going to be clean, they're going to be dry, they're not going to be full of sand. And you can deal with all of that later. You don't have to worry about moving the shoes into a separate bag. That would be my advice to you. Second question about coming out of the sea. Am I okay to wear swim bottoms and a sports bra and run from the sea to transition with my wetsuit rolled down? I've read about the nudity rules. I know there's no nudity. Is that going to be okay? So it is going to be okay. It's fine if gentlemen, if you've got nothing on underneath and you want to run bare chested, you're not going to cross any nudity laws there. The nudity laws in transition are around not wanting people to completely strip off. Now, within the transition one area itself, there's change tents. Within the change tent, there's an area you can go into to get completely changed if you want to. The reason there's a no nudity law is essentially because the volunteers are going to be both male and female. So if you're a man and the lady is helping you get changed or vice versa, it's just to help avoid any embarrassment and any potential challenges that might be there. So if you do want to get completely changed and strip off, that's fine. There is a separate section for that within the transition tent itself where you can go to. But you're absolutely fine to swim with swim bottoms and a bikini top or a sports bra underneath your wetsuit. Gentlemen, you're fine to just wear swim trunks or cycle shorts or tri shorts or whatever, and be able to run with your wetsuit rolled down from the sea all the way to transition one. That's totally, totally fine. The next question directly addresses that as well. So getting changed in transition one, do I need to take a towel with me to wrap around me, or will there be a tent? There is a separate tent within the tent where you can go into to get completely changed. It's right there. You're not going to lose any time. It is there and available to everybody. If you want to take a towel to wrap around you and have it in your bag, again, that's completely fine. You can do that. But just be aware of, there are some athletes for whom every minute, every second is going to count in trying to beat the cutoff at the end of the bike and at the end of the run in some cases as well. So be aware of the timings. If you're well within this, if you're a good swimmer and you've got a whole hour left before the swim cutoff, then it's no drama at all. But if you're one of those athletes who is going to be chasing the cutoff, just be aware it is going to be worth trying to plan to get through transition as quickly as possible. And on that, it's worth saying you can burn a lot of time in transition. You can be in and out of that tent in a minute, or you can be in there for 10 minutes. You can be sitting down and thinking about all the different things to do. I would advise everybody to practice this at home in your bedroom in the lead up to the race. Practice, right, I've come out of the swim wearing this. I'm going to leave onto the bike wearing those. How do I get changed as quickly as possible? And actually practice doing it. You might find you can cut 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 minutes off your transition time just by doing that. And again, if you're up against a cutoff, that could make all the difference. Question 4. I've read about having a bottle of water to pour down your tri-suit in order to have some water inside your suit before you go into the water. Is that a good idea? So I'd say absolutely. You might be able to get into the water in various different events. Again, every event has its own rules regarding this. The reason it's so important to have water inside your wetsuit is that the suit fits so much better if the neoprene is wet on the inside. So if you can get into the water before the event and the specific event allows that, then great. You can get in, you can pull the neck of your wetsuit out, you can bend down and let water in and stand up. You can then squeegee water all the way down the front of the suit, go back in and let some down, let it down one arm and down the other. And then once the water's inside the suit, firstly, your suit will fit so much better. And secondly, that layer of water that's trapped in there is going to start to warm up and you will get warm and stay warm. Whereas if you get into, especially in colder water, if you get in a dry wetsuit, water's going to gradually leak in through the neck, through some of the seams, and you'll get a nasty cold shock as that goes in. So even if the water isn't particularly cold, I'd advise you to have with you a 2-litre bottle of water. And then when your wetsuit's on, you can pour it down the neck. You can try and let some go down each arm. And then you'll feel once that neoprene's on you and it's wet, it'll slide around and you can kind of roll up on the legs and pull it up into your crotch. You can roll it up into the armpits and make sure it fits really well. The wetter that is ahead of time, the better for you and the more comfortable it's going to be. So I'd absolutely advise you having that. For the really cold races, I think it's not a bad idea to have a thermos flask with warm water in. And then that way, you're not absolutely freezing just before you get into the water. So that's something to consider. And then find an appropriate place to dispose of that. There'll be a volunteer or a bin or something down there, or a spectator you can give it to. Just make sure that you don't just dump it on the beach. Okay. Question 5. When do I put on body glide or lube for the wetsuit, and where do I put it? So that's a great question. And often people don't even consider body glide or wetsuit lube. Something that is going to massively affect how comfortable you are, especially if you're swimming in salt water, is whether you put on and how much of some kind of lubrication you put on around your wetsuit, cuffs, seams, neck, and ankles, especially around the neck and around the back of the neck. There's something in salt water that feels abrasive. It can rub against your skin and it can end up really sore, especially over an Ironman distance. Obviously, there's salt in the water, and that is in itself, it feels abrasive against your skin. And it's not unusual to see people who've not swum in the sea before come out of the water with red welts around the neck just because they haven't put any lube on. You might not need it in fresh water. It's definitely worth having it for salt water. So the brands are Body Glide or Hoop Lube, or some people have even used baby oil. I've heard people use Vaseline, but that's not recommended because it perishes the rubber. It won't happen if you just do it once, but the Body Glide I've used personally, I think is one of the best products out there. Loads of it around your neck, around the seam of where your wetsuit's going to be, especially at the back where the zipper part meets, and be extra careful that there isn't part of the rough part of the Velcro closure rubbing against your neck. Just make sure that that isn't something that's going to happen. Because again, that's something that can get irritated really, really quickly. So get tons of it around your neck. Also get it around the cuffs, around your wrists and around your ankles. And it just means that the suit will come off so much easier. So if you haven't got any at the moment, get onto an online shopping thing, get onto Amazon and get yourself some ready for race day, because it will make a really big difference, especially if you're swimming in salt water. So for those people who are going to IRONMAN Wales, especially if you haven't swum in salt water before, some kind of lubrication around the neck, the cuffs, the ankles is going to be really beneficial and give you loads more comfort during the rest of the day. Question 6. Should I be wearing socks and flip-flops to the beach as we go down to wait? So absolutely, this is a tip that I give to people. Whether you wear flip-flops or not, that might be overkill. I definitely advise you to take with you an old pair of socks. Your feet can get surprisingly cold in the probably 30 to 45 minutes that you're going to be standing around on the beach beforehand. If you've got some old socks on, or you can wear old socks and old flip-flops as well, that can make a really big difference to your feet being comfortable when you get in the water, or that sensation of having really cold feet before you get in the water. Again, you'll have to plan for how you're going to get rid of them, whether there's a volunteer you can give them to, or a bin you can put them in just down before you go into the water and the swim start. Ideally, don't be leaving litter everywhere. Don't be dumping stuff on the beach. Very bad karma. Take care of that. But having the warm feet as you're waiting around, especially if you're someone who struggles a little bit with the temperatures, can make a massive, massive difference. Okay, question 7. I'm going to be at the back of the pack. Am I going to need a head torch on the run if I'm running in the dark? So, first up, in relation to IRONMAN Wales itself, I don't think you're going to need a head torch on the run. The majority of the run is through Tenby itself. The section where you go out of the town and up the main roads, big wide roads, they put floodlights out there and light up parts of the road as well. Personally, I don't think that you're going to need it. Now, that being said, if we're applying this to every Ironman that's out there, some of these courses do get dark when it goes dark. There are big stretches. I know Ironman Hawaii is really, really dark out for hours after the sun sets. And again, you might be racing in the middle of summer and the sun doesn't set till 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening. This time of year, as we're in mid-September at the moment, in Tenby, the sun's going to be setting around 7:30. So there's the potential there for 3 or 4 hours worth of people being out in the dark. It's not a terrible idea to have that in your bag. You are going to have to carry it with you the whole way round. That's a thing to be aware of. But if you get yourself a really small, lightweight Petzl head torch like rock climbers wear, it's a really good thing to have on. But again, nothing new on race day. make sure you've trialed it in training in advance. Okay. So, question number 8. Have you got any tips for punctures on race day? So, the athlete in question here actually punctured this weekend. She was out on a race sim ride and punctured, and first time changing a puncture out in the heat of a timed training session, and found it was really difficult. And one of the things she found was she got absolutely covered in oil. As anyone finds, if you're changing a rear wheel puncture, it's very, very hard to take the wheel off and put the wheel back on again without getting any oil on your fingers. So the first tip is to have a pair of latex gloves stuffed in your saddlebag. I'd advise you carry these around with you all the time because they're a total lifesaver. You don't end up with oil all over your hands for the rest of your ride. And on race day in an Ironman, you don't end up with oil all over your hands for the rest of the event. It's potentially going to be really, really irritating for you. And you'll find that those little things that are a bit annoying at the time can be really annoying when you're tired. So oil on your hands, getting Coke on your hands and it going sticky, they can be really irritating. So latex gloves in your saddlebag. Obviously, make sure you're carrying your own spares and you know how to change it. Make sure you know how to use CO2 canister if you've got one and you've used it before. Make sure you know how your pump works if you're using a pump. Lots of times people, especially if they're beginners, they'll have been out with friends or partners, and if they've had an incident, the friend or partner who might be more experienced might take over and change that for you, thinking they're doing you a favor. But actually what's happening is that person's never learned to do it for themselves. So practice during this taper week. That's a great time to use some of your sort of stored up energy, if you like, to learn how to do these things. My last tip for you here is have a really good, strong set of tire levers. I'm not sponsored by this company, but I think they're fantastic. There's a tire lever company called Pedro's. They make thick yellow tire levers. They fit together. They're fantastic. They're not the cheapest, but they're not expensive. They're maybe £5 a pair, but they're super, super strong. And some of the ones that you get, like the little free ones you get with a Continental inner tube sometimes, they're next to useless. They completely bend. The yellow Pedro's ones are really, really hard, and you can lever your tire back on as well. So again, you might find you manage to get the tire off and then it's really difficult to get the tire back on again. Those really strong Pedro's tire levers are fantastic at allowing you to kind of chunk the tire on a little bit at a time and allowing you to actually get that tire back on. So please make sure you've tried this yourself in the lead up to the race. Hope is not a strategy. Take your wheel off when you're watching TV one night. Practice doing it. Learn to do it. Get someone who knows how to do it to show you the tips and the tricks of how to do it. And if you find that the tire is really hard to get on and off, take it on and off again a few times. The bead around the tire sometimes stretches and allows the tire to go on a little bit easier after you've done it a few times. So well worth doing ahead of time. Okay, question 9. What clothing should I plan for different kinds of weather? So this is a really interesting question that a lot of people don't think about as they're going to race an Ironman. I myself have been guilty of this. I went and raced Ironman France 10 years ago. In my head, Ironman France was going to be beautiful and sunny and warm, and I was worried about being too hot. And I didn't for a second consider that the weather might be anything than that. I woke up on race day morning and looked out the window of my hotel. There were thick black clouds over the mountains, and I thought to myself, all I've got with me is a tri-suit. If it rains and it's cold on race day, what am I going to do? It was a really amateur piece of poor preparation. So I'd always take with you your rain jacket so that if it does get really cold and wet and rainy on race day, you've got it with you if you travel into the race. Plan for all eventualities. So you've got a skull cap, you've got arm warmers, you've got toe warmers for your shoes, you've got a proper rain jacket, you've got a gilet, you've even got a bin bag with you. And with all those things packed with you, you then have the choice, if it looks like it's going to be inclement on race day, of what to wear. What you're actually going to choose is largely going to depend on how competitive you want to be and how bad the weather is actually going to be. So if the weather's really bad, just remember that you're going out to do a 180-kilometer bike ride. Even our best riders are going to be out there 4.5 hours. Most age groupers are going to be out there 6 to 8 hours. Would you go out for a 6 to 8 hour ride at home just wearing a thin tri-suit in the kind of weather you see outside or the kind of weather that's been forecast? And if the answer is no, give yourself an option that means you're not gonna not finish because of being too cold and too wet. Okay. So if you want to be really competitive, having anything over the top of your tri suit is going to slow you down. So a tip I picked up from Tim Don at a race was he raced on a cold, wet day. And as he came into transition two, he actually had a bin bag down the front of his tri suit, and he'd cut it into just a torso shaped piece of plastic, and he had one down the front and one down the back. And as he came in and racked his bike, he undid his tri suit. He pulled this piece of plastic out at the front. He pulled this one out over the back and left it in transition, and off he went. And speaking to him afterwards, that was a tip that he'd used for years as a racer. It's like something plastic as a total wind and rain barrier and can keep you really surprisingly warm. So if you're at the very pointy end of the field, that is certainly better than nothing. Your other options are the tighter fitting the item of clothing, the better. So if you've got a really nice Castelli Gabba rain gilet and it's tightly fitting, you're probably not giving more than 10 watts away. If you've got a big flappy rain jacket on, well, you definitely are giving 20, 30 watts away. But if you're not trying to go for the win, that's probably worth it for you. The people who we're most concerned about here are the people who are going to be up against the cutoff. And it's those people who are going to probably be out for the longest, but also are going to be the most punished by having big flappy clothing on. So try and play that the best way you can for the situation that suits you. Giving you a whole bunch of options there. Choose the one that suits you. And the last question here, question 10, I've picked this up from one of the IRONMAN Wales Facebook groups. Someone's written, is anyone struggling in their taper? I've done 12 to 14 hours a week consistently for a year, and now I'm in the taper, I feel like I've not done enough. And that comment really made me giggle, because inherent in that is the athlete doesn't see they've done 12 to 14 hours of training a week consistently for a year. Our bodies just remember how we feel right here, right now. And obviously that's a whole ton of training and that athlete's going to be fine. But it's really common during taper week that our mind plays tricks on us, tells us that we're not ready, tells us we've not done enough, tells us we should do more, when actually what we need is the rest and recovery so we can get freshened up and be really fit and really fresh on race day. You don't want to be doing a ton of training in the week before race day. So just know that it's totally normal during taper week to think that you haven't done enough, to be really worried you haven't done enough, to feel awful, to feel like you're coming down with a cold, to feel really flat, to feel fed up, to feel out of sorts. All of those things are really normal, because you've kind of taken away the drug that your body's used to. You've taken away the regular aerobic training and replaced it with a lot of sitting around and thinking time. It's not a good combination, but you just have to wait it out. You have to sit it out and wait it out and know that by Wednesday, Thursday of race week, you're going to start feeling fresh, and the little sessions that you do, you'll feel fantastic. By Thursday, Friday, Saturday of race week, you're going to feel absolutely wonderful and ready to go. So don't make the mistake of doing one last hard session or one last big session. You've done the training, back yourself, let the taper do its job, but know that the taper doing its job isn't particularly going to feel very nice, unfortunately. So just know that you've got to get through it. So listen, that brings us to the end of this episode about questions about IRONMAN Wales and question about Racebig. I hope it's really helped you out. If you're going to be racing IRONMAN Wales this week, I know we've got a ton of athletes that we've helped out. We did some coaching partnership work this year with the IRONMAN Wales team. So all the way from last September, we've been running webinars and we've been answering questions over email and putting training plans and coaching plans in place for athletes. All of you guys have worked exceptionally hard for this. No one's training goes smoothly, or hardly ever does anyone's training go smoothly. Almost everyone on the start line is sitting there thinking, haven't done enough. Things didn't go well. My memory is just telling me of the sessions that I've missed. But back yourself. You've done the training to the best of your ability at this point. Go out there on race day. Really enjoy IRONMAN Wales. It's one of the most spectacular races on the circuit. The setting of Tenby, the countryside around the area is absolutely beautiful. So take in the beauty of nature and let it give you extra power come race day. I wish you all the best in the world. I'd love to know how you get on. Obviously, the athletes we coach, I'll hear from. But if you've been on our webinars or if you've been following a training plan or advice we've given out, please let us know afterwards. Drop us a line to help@oxygenaddict.com. We love hearing about successful Ironman campaigns. And Ironman is always a journey. It's always about the training that you put in, much more about race day. And I think you'll find this after race day. You realize that all the hard work you did along the way was actually the reward in itself rather than race day being that. You'll be changed because of it. You've put an awful lot of hard work in, and you know that you can reap the rewards of training really hard and really consistently and applying yourself to a long-term goal. So I hope it goes really well for you. Fingers crossed for race day for some decent weather. Get out there and do your very best. Okay, that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Before we finish, here are some discount codes and deals for you. If you're looking for coaching for the end of the season and into 2025 and beyond, over at teamoxygenaddict.com, I think we've got the most comprehensive triathlon coaching program for busy age groupers. And through the end of September 2024, we're running a special discount of £200 off an annual coaching package, taking the price from $17.97 down to $15.97 for 12 months worth of coaching. If you're looking for high quality proven coaching for Ironman or 70.3, I honestly don't think that you're going to find a better solution for busy age groupers. If you're interested, there's a link in the show notes. You can book a membership call with me or a member of our team. We can have a good chat through whether you'd be a good fit for Team Oxygen Addict and our coaching and see how we can best help you out. And remember that £200 discount only applies to annual memberships and it's limited to the end of September 2024. So please get in quickly. If you're listening to a historical episode, then you'll have missed this discount, unfortunately, but please feel free to get in touch anyway, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Also, remember, you can go over to precisionfuelandhydration.com and use the code OXYGEN24 for 15% off your first electrolyte order. You can use their free fuel and hydration planning tool to receive a personalized strategy for your next race. It'll help you understand your own carbohydrate, electrolyte, and fluid needs so you can refine your strategy during training. And don't forget, there's also the availability of a free one-to-one video consultation with their athlete support team, and they'll be happy to help you nail your nutrition plan and help you perform at your best on race day. So remember, there's links in the show notes so you don't have to remember them. And if you're after £200 off your coaching, you can get a massive deal by booking in before the end of September 2024. Until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. I'm Coach Rob Wilby, and you've been listening to the Oxygen Addict podcast.